Raving Fans is a concept and philosophy made famous by Ken Blanchard's book, Raving Fans. This isn't really a new concept. It's just that getting a title in a book and being synthesized into a process is what helps us to understand what we've called for years word of mouth. And so if you're really trying to grow and develop your business, the best way to grow a business has always been through word of mouth. The only problem with word of mouth is it also tends to be one of the slowest ways to grow your business. And so, we've come to appreciate things like marketing and advertising and guerrilla marketing to speed up the process. But be sure there is no greater way to build your business than to be obsessed with creating raving fans. And that happens by having great word of mouth business. And so Raving Fans really is kind of the result of, having a great fish philosophy, by having a great find your yellow tux concept. And so in Raving Fans, we take a look at the word itself, raving and fans, right? And so when you look at raving, that's a verb, and it means enthusiastic, ready to give extravagant praise. And then a fan, real simply, is a noun short for fanatic. And so we see this in sports all the time, right? The fans are fanatical. They're crazy. They go above and beyond to root for, support their teams no matter what. And so that's the idea of in your business, you want this enthusiastic, ready to give extravagant praise fanatics on your team. This is your free marketing team. Remember, we're in the people business. I don't care what it is that you do. At some point or another, you're going to have to deal with people. And so we're in the people business, and you want the people that are doing business with you to be fanatical supporters, to spread through word of mouth the praises of what you do for them. Well, how do we do that? Well, we do that by being absolutely obsessed with customer satisfaction. See, far too often, especially in a sales environment, the only thing we're thinking of is closing the deal, making the sale, right? But if we really consider the customer satisfaction first, and if we realize that, look, goods aren't just sold, products and services are purchased. They're not, now listen carefully, they're not sold. Okay, it doesn't take a used car salesman to sell products and services. See, products and services are sought out and they're bought. They're purchased. Most point of sales happens because the consumer is looking to make a purchase. And so if they're directed by word of mouth, or if they're directed by a raving fanatic who's told somebody to go shop somewhere, well, then you're halfway home. Remember, quality isn't enough. If it just came down to quality, then all the best products around would sell the most. But that's not true. We see the dollar stores. One of the fastest growing chains in America right now is the dollar store. Well, why? Not because of great service and not because of quality. They're working off of an entirely different model, which is price point. They're just trying to have the lowest price point, $1. Well, in Raving Fans, what you have to do is have the mindset, right? The mindset that your standards need to be better than your competition. You need to go above and beyond customer satisfaction. One of the great things about Steve Jobs and the founder of Apple was he was driven, absolutely driven, to produce end results for his customers. He had a clear vision of the customer experience and what the customer wanted and what the customer valued. And he was just driven to make sure that he produced products with an end result of a great product for the customer. And this is what drove his employees crazy. This is what drove his investors, his board crazy, because at the end of the day, he was driven by raving fans. And lo and behold, Steve Jobs was right. And Apple is still on the market today as the most expensive products all around. And yet the raving fans, the word of mouth, the great fanatical expression by the customers has really carried the day. And so the way you do that is, well, you have to have the mindset of a customer. You can't just think like an owner or just like a salesman. You have to understand what your customers value. And so again, in sales and in presentations, too often we're trying to, to sell product. We're trying to sell to an objection, right? Instead of selling the sizzle, we're just trying to sell the steak. Well, no, you have to put yourself inside of your customer, understand what they value, understand what they want, understand what they value and want emotionally, and then make sure they're satisfied. Make sure they're satisfied. I mean, it astounds me that almost everybody goes and finds their dentist and their mechanic almost entirely based on word of mouth. Well, what about your industry? What is it that you do? How do you get customers? I mean, if you really sit down and think about it, it's probably very similar in your industry too, just maybe not as advanced, or some industries just refuse to market and advertise, so the only way they exist is by word of mouth, and so they think that they're doing a good job when really they can be doing a much better job of producing enthusiastic, fanatical, praiseworthy people that are just running around town touting their business. One example that I absolutely love was years ago, I read an example of a taxi cab driver in New York City. And this guy, he had the raving fan mentality down to a T. So here's this taxi cab driver, right? He's in New York City. I mean, there's thousands of taxi cab drivers in New York City. Well, how do they make money? I mean, you can only have so many rides a day. You can only go so far. I mean, how would a taxi cab driver earn more money than the guy next to him? Well, what he decided to do is create raving fans by creating an experience in his cab that was above and beyond anybody else, so that people would actually try to find him, if you can imagine, in New York City. Well, what did he do? Well, it started with his cab was clean. It was spotless on the outside. It was spotless on the inside. Every single night he would make sure that it was cleaned, and every single morning he would come and just polish it back up. He made sure his cab smelled good. He wanted the senses. So when people came in, that right away the experience of sitting in that cab was it smelled good. I mean, already you've never been in a taxi cab that was clean on the outside, clean on the inside, and smelled good, right? Well, he didn't stop there. He would spend his own money and make sure that his cab, even though he didn't own the cab, that the air conditioning always worked, especially in the summer. The heater always worked, especially in the winter. He would hustle. He hustled to open the doors. He hustled to carry the bags. Nobody had to ask him, and he wasn't just, putting his hand out. He would just do it to serve. When a customer entered his cab, immediately he would offer some kind of refreshment. Again, depending on the season, he'd offer coffee, he would offer cold refreshments, and at no charge. He provided free magazines, the daily newspaper. He offered his customers which radio station they would like to listen to. It was the customer's choice, not his. He also included free snacks. And so why did he do this? Well, there were two reasons why he did this. One, he wanted to create and produce a great experience so people would seek him out and come back. But you know what? Imagine what his tips were like compared to other taxi cab drivers. And so whatever minimal amount he was spending on the coffee and the drinks and the snacks, he was getting back tenfold in the tips. Really ingenious. But this is the idea. This is the mentality that I want you to think about when you're thinking of having a raving fan mentality. And so in Ken Blanchard's book, he actually lays out 5 real easy steps. 5 easy steps. 1, give great customer service. Give great customer service. Do it better than anybody else does it. Ask, how may I help you? And be willing to help and have a happy heart and a great attitude. Decide what you want. If you want to have raving fans, then you need to make that decision. Hey, I want to make this, worthwhile. And so, the taxi cab driver decided that he was going to have, his plan of action. So it's up to you to decide how you're going to create that raving fan. And then you need to discover what your customers want. Okay, it's good to know what you want. It's good to have goals, but you need to know what your customer wants. Okay, and then finally, know what your customer wants and then deliver plus one more. Deliver extra. Do it above and beyond. It really reminds me of the early days in Starbucks when you would walk into a Starbucks and it was just such a new thing to, for them to ask for your name and then for them to make your drink by order. And nobody thought that how are you gonna survive when you're charging $5 for a coffee and 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts is charging $1? Well, Starbucks created raving fans, and the experience of going to Starbucks through word of mouth won the day, and that's the raving fans process.